Whether twiddling their thumbs during the decades since Commandos 3, or calmly hiding in a hedge waiting to knife a nosy Nazi in the neck on his next stroll past, if there's one thing Commandos fans are known for, it's lurking patiently. Good things come to those who've waited, and Commandos Origins fits that bill. Slow-paced, challenging, and consistently satisfying when all your plans come together, its brand of isometric stealth action is intact and has never looked better. I've sunk nearly 60 hours into it over the last week and a half just to see out the missions, and there are potentially dozens more hours available should I return to play through some of them again with the intention of leaving no stone unturned and no soldier unslain. The only major issue is the assortment of bugs I've had to become accustomed to in order to keep enjoying myself. Like a peskily placed German sniper, some of these I learned how to avoid entirely, but there were others I just needed to find a way to neutralize.
Only a few have the guts to dance in the lion's den, but those that do, you can trust them with your life.
For those of you who skipped basic training, Commandos is a classic series of real-time tactics stealth 'em-ups set during the Second World War that goes all the way back to the late 90s. Picture a crew of elite but generally crabby commandos crawling around on their bellies behind enemy lines, driven by a whole lot of mouse clicking, and you're most of the way there. For a modern comparison, it's a lot like the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, only filmed exclusively from a drone, and without Guy Ritchie's wit or Henry Cavill's perfectly curled cookie duster. Or the BBC's Rogue Heroes with 90% less swearing and 100% less AC/DC. However, while its cheesy yet otherwise stony-faced approach may lack the outright humour of these crackling British Special Forces capers, Commandos Origins is arguably the best version of the series' concept to date. It's a familiar yet modern experience for grizzled veterans, and also an intuitive and approachable one for new players who are ready to test themselves against a steadily escalating difficulty curve. Like any great stealth game, Origins is as much a game about tactics as it is a salvo of deadly puzzles to solve. It essentially boils down to analysing every upcoming encounter, inspecting each enemy soldier's vision cone, and finding a way to dispatch them that won't bring the whole German army down on your squad's heads. A large part of my time with Origins has been spent simply staring at the screen, surveying my prey like an ambush predator.
No more calls to the outside world.
Each of the 6 commandos on your team has a set of unique tools and abilities. For the most part, Origins curates the characters available for each mission, tailoring the action for their skills. There are only 2 instances where all 6 soldiers will be on the same battlefield at once, which is kind of a shame because those are real highlights. That said, I probably would have played a huge amount of Origins exclusively using the Marines' throwing knives and harpoon gun had I had the chance, so forcing me to expand my approach by sidelining him sometimes was probably wise and almost certainly kept things from becoming stale.
Okay.
Speaking of sidelining, I actually don't miss the inventory management of the previous games, though I feel like I wouldn't have removed the ability to pick up and use enemy weapons for the Green Beret in particular. The argument here is that Origins is more about thoughtful stealth at all times, and less about spraying lead from scavenged MP40s at anything with a swastika on it. Thoughtful stealth, luckily, is empowered by the coolest part of Origins, Command Mode. Riffing on similar modes in the late great Me's Desperados 3 and Shadow Gambit the Cursed Crew, Command Mode allows you to freeze time indefinitely and queue up individual actions for each of your commandos. Back in real time, they'll execute those simultaneously on your say-so. Nailing the timing on a set of command mode instructions is powerfully satisfying, whether it's simply 2 crawling commandos stabbing a distracted pair of soldiers from the side, or a more complicated and elaborately choreographed ballet of harpoons, blades, and bullets. It's all quite a slow process to do well, but it's a truly rewarding one when you figure out the solution to taking on what initially may seem like too many meticulously positioned soldiers to tackle. Maybe your first choice of target is impossible to kill quietly because he's always inside of one of his other comrades, and maybe that very squad mate is always in view of a third, and so on. But there's fun in uncovering who should be the first domino to fall throat first onto a Feb and Sykes combat knife. Some enemies will leave their posts to investigate strange sounds like the sapper's whistle or the Green Beret's radio, or inspect the drivers burning packets of cigarettes.
Affirmative.
Some will only temporarily turn and face a distraction, giving you precious moments to slip by them. Experimenting with which routes and tools work best is a task that tapped into a compulsive part of my brain.
Sharp blade makes for a quick kill.
The opportunities are always there, it's just on us to find them, and the fact that they're not telegraphed or signposted makes every victory feel like you've outfoxed the developers. At one point I spotted a tiny gap in the view cones of 4 soldiers on a small set of stairs in the water. It allowed me to not only get behind them to wipe them out, but also to bring 3 other squad mates via boat to the rear of my main objective.
Coming right over.
Was that there on purpose? Probably, but maybe not. Leaving it ambiguous as to whether you've gone about an encounter in the precise way Claymore Game Studio left ajar for us, or succeeded with an unpredictable sequence of moves the dev team perhaps never saw coming, is just good design.
Glad to assist.
On the move.
Either way, the encouragement to explore every corner of the maps for the best opportunities is thoroughly baked in. In large part, that's because these levels are all exceedingly detailed dioramas, sprawling and dense, and everyone feels like I'm playing a high-stakes game of toy soldiers on the kind of miniature map exhibits you might see tucked behind glass at a war museum. Missions take place all across Europe and North Africa too, so the variety of backdrops is terrific. From snowy Scandinavia to lush, soggy fields and baking deserts. The huge environments are also rendered entirely in 3 dimensions, and you can enter buildings seamlessly. And the fact that I felt the need to say that should give you an idea of how long it's been since we've had a proper Commandos game. Anyway, you can make fine camera rotations in any compass direction, so getting the right angle to spot a gap in security is easy. That said, scrolling around too fast sometimes introduces a bit of temporary choppiness, but it's a short-lived gripe. It's otherwise great looking overall. There is, unfortunately, some occasional clumsiness when navigating particularly complex multi-story structures. Over the course of the campaign, I encountered a few enemies that appeared to be sharing a floor with me, but who were actually on a different level entirely and should have been hidden from view at that moment.
Agreed.
I also had the misfortune of placing down a bear trap that became irretrievable because it wasn't on the same platform I wanted to leave it, and being shot through a solid container that apparently wasn't really there is never any fun. There were also occasional instances where my commands were being misinterpreted and my men were setting off to unintended areas and directly into enemy sight lines due to an apparent disconnect between what floors had been displayed and what floor Origins thinks I'm clicking on. These aren't major frustrations though, and remedying them typically just required some minor zooming or panning the camera slightly. That or a quick reload to bring back the prematurely deceased.
No death in vain. Okay.
In the trial and error world of tactical games like Commandos, quick save is your friend, and Origins is no exception. The ability to pick up directly where you left off after doing something risky and or stupid is actually what gives us the freedom to experiment with different approaches in the first place. Make no mistake, quick save well and truly saved my bacon on many occasions, but unfortunately, this essential feature also seems to provoke some of Origins' most bothersome bugs. For instance, loading a save you made while one of your commandos was climbing a wire or perched high on a climbable pole appears to leave the poor bastard marooned on an invisible level above the map, fruitlessly crawling or moonwalking into oblivion. The solution, naturally, is to simply resolve to never save while one of your men is climbing anything. That wasn't the end of my issues though. After another reload, I noticed my marine was no longer in his boat, but walking on water back to the marker I'd placed. This bug eventually resolved itself, but one where my sapper simply disappeared off the map and became unselectable did not. This kind of issue could have become game-breaking, but Origins, seemingly aware that it has plenty of technical landmines for you to step on, keeps a queue of several quick saves. For the most part, if something goes awry, there's a strong chance you'll have a slightly older save you can revert to. In this instance though, I'd sadly filled all my saves without noticing my sapper was no longer present. The only solution was restarting the mission entirely, which was over an hour lost. One weird issue, and one I can't tell whether it's related to the quick saves or not, is the occasional instance of enemies falsely detecting one of your commandos in a bush they're no longer hiding in, and getting locked in an alert state about it. They'll subsequently circle it and blast it to hell to no avail.
Die Schweine haben meinen Kameraden erwischt!
It wasn't so bad because I was able to either skirt around it or totally exploit it by stabbing all the soldiers while they were busy slaughtering the unfortunate shrubbery, but it definitely wasn't supposed to happen. I wouldn't necessarily call the enemies smart overall, and it would have been nice if they displayed a little more of the initiative we see in other modern stealth games. Instead of callously ignoring dead bodies after an alert phase resets, for instance, they might want to drag their kaput companions off to a predefined location, a la Hitman. They make up for their dim bulbs by being extremely dangerous though, and they're just unpredictable enough to keep you on your toes when you think you've got their patterns figured out. They won't inspect the nearest hiding places in the same order after a reload, for instance, so you'd better have a backup plan. Or at least make sure nobody's climbing a telephone pole when they come looking. Commandos Origins strikes a great balance between the classic stealth tactics games and modern streamlined ideas, creating tons of potential for finding creative solutions to problems like too many living fascists. Pruning out elements like inventory management may not be to every older fan's tastes, but that's focused a spotlight on strict stealth, and it's here Origins shines, sneaking through its massive maps, each of which are swarming with hundreds of enemies, takes hours and hours of patient planning and careful clicking. I regularly gleaned a ton of pleasure from executing a perfect coordinated strike and fading away into the background with the remaining Nazis none the wiser. No plan survives contact with this many bugs, but quick loading will get you past nearly any issue, and this otherwise might be the sneakiest fun you can have going commando with your underwear on.
This might
For more of the latest reviews, check out our verdicts on South of Midnight and Atomfall. For everything else, stay on IGN.
Feuer!